All right.
All right. Good day and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another Live the Fuel show. So today we are recording live on a fun and happy Saturday. At least it is for me, and hopefully it is for our guest co-host today too, because ladies and gentlemen, we're bringing on a bit of a fellow, a health nut. You're going to find out more today. So my new guest co-host today, she cares a little bit about healthy lifestyle, and she might know a little bit about holistic health coaching. She's basically on an unrelenting mission to heal, restore, and recharge lives through the healing art of what she has coined as the HRR Method. I love acronyms. I love different methodologies, so I'm excited. But anyway, she's all about empowering her community as a tireless advocate, speaker, and thought-leading healer. So without further ado, Live the Fuel fans, welcome to the show, our new guest co-host, Dr. Andrea Blake. How's your day going?
It's going great. Thank
Yeah?
you. Thank you for having me on Live the Fuel. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was joking around before we hit record today. I'd be like, what do you do on the weekends? So I'm like, well, sometimes I go skiing. Sometimes I go mountain biking. Sometimes I squeeze some yoga in the morning. Or we just start rocking mics and podcasting. So.
Yeah. I like the last one the most.
Yes. So welcome. And actually, real quick, how many podcasts have you done?
This will be my second podcast.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
In the past 2 weeks, I've had 3 more newbies. So I love, cracking into that unknown for people and giving people a new voice and a new way to get their brand out there and everything. So
thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm excited. And how did you get connected up with our connectee or connector, I should say? So she got us all connected up.
Got it all connected through Pam Perry, Public Relations.
Yeah.
Connected, she's helping me get my brand out and get my message out. And, I definitely want to, I'm all about speaking, podcasting, live podcasting is definitely new to me. So definitely just, hey, let's find a way to get the word out.
Well, that's actually newer too. So actually, people hearing this in the podcast world, this show would have already aired weeks before you're hearing it as you hear this right now, because we're streaming this live on the Live the Fuel page and elsewhere, also in some of my private mastermind groups. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our live podcasting if you're on Facebook. But yes, this won't air in the normal traditional podcast world until, I don't know, probably... Well, I have to check out my VA. It's at least 2-3 weeks out. I know that we've had a lot of shows getting recorded. So I don't know. Actually, how long ago was your first podcast then?
It was in November. So a couple months ago. Yep.
Okay. And how did it go for you?
It went great. I mean, once I got going and once I got warmed up and we started talking on the topic, it just flowed.
Well,
like having a conversation, basically.
So you just hinted, though, you're not a stranger to, let's say, the microphone. I'm air quoting for the listeners out there because,
right.
I mean, to be fair, if you're speaking on stage, you're speaking to audiences or doing any kind of group conversation, you're speaking.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's a bit of a passion of yours then.
It is. I have a message and a passion for people, for healing, holistic healing, and just being able to shift your life force energy into a place that's really going to fuel you and give you what you need, your desires of your heart. And it takes, mind, body, and spirit. And I have a passion for that. And I want to put a voice to, I have a voice and I want to put my voice more out there to it.
I love it. I mean, I'm all about energy. I'm a high energy guy. But I also understand the importance of aligning set energies. Because I mean, if I heard this stuff years ago, I'm like, what's this life force, life energy, alignment? I didn't know what a circadian rhythm was back then. And and I tell people all the time, maybe you'll appreciate this little quote I started using in the past year or so. It's like, you know what? It's okay. We're just all at a different place on the timeline. And these types of topics and subjects that you clearly have become passionate about don't always start off with the same level of attention depending on the person we're talking to or meeting or speaking with or whatever, because maybe they just haven't dropped the walls down enough. They haven't actually experienced these little steps that probably you and I have all experienced over the years. So I wanted to pause on that subject before your response on that little quote that I'm using, different place on the timeline. But speaking of timelines, how long ago did you start getting passionate about this?
About the speaking part or just the holistic healing part? Well,
actually, good point, right? So let's go with 2 answers. So let's get a timestamp on when you started getting the holistic stuff, but then when did it awaken you and say, you know what, I need to start sharing this?
Yeah, At least 20 years. So next month I'll be on my 20th years practicing chiropractic. And I
Wow.
got into chiropractic because I was always interested in the health profession and healing. But I had my own healing experience after getting adjusted for a few months, suffering from severe migraine headaches,
Mm.
menstrual issues that were happening that nothing, medication didn't clear up, and, all the normal ways that we go about healing. But just through the adjustment of the spine, and within 2 months, all symptoms gone.
Huh. Oh,
So
it's
that,
okay. It's not like I haven't heard this before, so I'm excited. So
right.
yeah.
It's real exciting when you hear it. No drugs, no surgery, and now
Mm-hmm.
I'm healed. While I was depending on these drugs, and of course, it was taken away from my quality of life, my life force energy, and the side effects and all of that. So that definitely lit a passion for me, and I decided I think I want to go this route as far as what I want to do in the healing profession. And so it just went on from there. And of course, it has its ups and downs,
Oh, sure.
and anything. And but I stuck with it, and through my own testimony and my patient success stories, over and over and time again, the passion just keeps growing. And then we find out that, hey, not a lot of people are into this. When we're trained to be more into, hey, wait to just, put a Band-Aid on it, take a pill, get a shot.
Oh,
And
you'll like that. I call it the pharmaceutical Band-Aid. So,
yes, that's a good one. The
right, because
pharmaceutical Band-Aid.
it's proven drugs were never technically meant to be the said cure. It was most, especially nowadays, our modern pharmaceutical, especially here in the United States, it
Mhm.
is literally treating symptoms. They aren't taking the time to find the root cause.
That is it. And the more I had, my patients began to say, what can I do more? How can I, what steps can I take on my own to help heal myself,
Mm.
naturally? And I'm tired of drugs and surgery. I'm tired of drugs and surgery. And so the more that happens, the more I said, hey, I can put a voice to this. Today we have social media and Facebook and people like you,
Mm-hmm.
that have, podcasts where we can put a voice. So why don't I do that?
So obviously, how long were you, I don't know if the proper word here was suffering. It sounds pretty serious, but how long were you dealing with the migraines and the mental impacts?
Mhm. Suffering is a good word for it. So pretty much since I was 12 or 13 years old.
Wow.
And
Okay.
and when I found out about chiropractic, I was in undergrad and in my early 20s, so around maybe 21, 22. And, I grew up in the South, small town, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what a chiropractor was, especially 20 years ago. It was even less, prevalent than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And someone introduced recommended that I go, and I looked it up, and hey, I'm suffering anyway. So try it. And that's what happened.
Oh, I mean, you'll appreciate then I'll share how I found chiropractic. It's because
Oh,
I jacked myself up. So
CrossFit.
back in 2008, I was the year that finally tried chiropractic because I was training for my first marathon
Oh,
and I was never a runner. So I went from like no running events to training for a marathon
wow.
and didn't set aside the right amount of training, didn't pace it myself the right way, yada, 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 injured an
Mm-hmm.
IT band.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of mine said, Scott, like, listen, I mean, unless you got a PT connection, why don't you try massage therapy and chiropractic? And the guy that I started going to back then, he actually did employ a massage therapist in his practice. So you could set up the timing where you go in, get the massage first, which is something I still recommend to this day,
Yeah.
within 24 to 48 hours of a session, and then go get the chiropractic session. So I probably went for like 3 months, all the way up until the actual marathon, and I was able to compete and try my first ever running event, only because well, it's either I limp around and give up or get the therapy and see if I could work through it. And he said, you know what, Scott, he's like, we got 3 months, let's get after it. And within 2 months I was good to go. So, but
Awesome.
that was a physical injury, not necessarily a mentally impacting issue, other than maybe my ego.
Right.
It's like, oh, maybe you don't know everything about training after all, Scott. So uh but yeah,
But
so
you stuck through, and you found something to help you get out there. And
and
hey,
that's it.
that's it.
And back then, that was probably one of the biggest physical things I had ever achieved. I mean, obviously, I've done a lot of crazy stuff since then, but it's set a lot of things in motion. Getting
Mhm.
myself to think differently, right? Like I never really went to the doctor a lot anyway. I've always been a bit of a health nut, but Um, I was always like, why? I didn't cut myself. I didn't break anything. So do I have to go to an MD? I never really took a lot of Tylenol and aspirin and Advil and all these brand names of anti-inflammatories that we all just take for granted and think just keep pumping them down your gullet is
Right.
okay. I don't know if you get much into gut biome, but whew,
Hmm.
the impacts of that too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it throws it throws everything off. And as you know, 70% of our immune system is in our gut.
Hmm.
So our body is dependent on the proper, healthy gut biome and the biotics to be able to handle anything that comes. And we wear it down by medications is one thing that wears that down.
Well, now obviously you didn't even get into that level until obviously starting to study all this. But so
Sure.
back when you found chiropractic to help with, I'm guessing it was some neck vertebrae alignment, involving some pinching off or some blocking of passageways and energies. Was that all what was triggering your headaches?
That was it. And this particular doctor, he practiced what we call upper cervical chiropractic,
Hmm.
meaning just the upper part of the neck. You can adjust and move bones up and down the spine from the pelvis up. His focus was the first and second bones. He felt that they were the most important. They were the ones around the brain stem. That was the beginning of the brain stimulation and the life force energy.
Okay.
And he just adjusted one bone on the right every time. And I went for 3 times a week. And by the end of 2 months, I mean, before 2 months, I could start to tell a difference,
Yeah.
a change and a decrease in the symptoms and the frequency. And by 2 months, it was a wrap.
See, that's amazing. I mean, I was just having this conversation with my wife. She's a veterinary doctor for large animals, so she's an equine doctor, but she also studied alongside of human chiropractors and as her chiropractic that she works on with animals as well. But then I'm trying to convince her to try my chiropractor versus her chiropractor,
Right.
and so I was like, listen, I'll just buy you your pre-eval session and your first couple sessions just to give it a shot. And she went once. She's like, well. Like I go to a woman, she goes to a guy, and
Uh-huh.
she's like, well, I don't know. She doesn't do the same thing that he does and
Mhm.
yada, yada, yada. And I was like, listen, I'm not forcing you to do anything. I'm just asking you to think outside the box. The woman I go to actually has additional education. I don't know how you get it. Maybe you've heard of it, but she has additional education on specialties and appendages and definitely like TMJ, jaw alignment, all that.
Mhm.
And I didn't even know you could specialize in stuff like that. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can get what we call, the diplomats, different
okay.
areas that you want to go into more specific focus on.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Now, was that all presented to you back when you started finding the schooling path and the education path, or were you kind of just going with, hey, I just want to wrap my head around this whole chiropractic thing?
Yeah, it was pretty much just wrap my head around it. I went to Sherman Chiropractic, and it was more of just chiropractic,
Okay.
basically. That was the focus of it. Pure chiropractic, the chiropractic adjustment. Of course, we can get into, applied kinesiology
Mm.
and all the different things, the appendages. There's so many things and different ways that you can go about it. And it just depends on you as the person, as a chiropractor, what you're interested in and what you want to specialize in.
So
Or
I
you
was,
can keep it focused on chiropractic.
so obviously you're big on the energy. Now, was
Mhm.
that discovered while you were going to school, and then once you got into your practice, or has that just always been there? I mean, how do you
Mhm.
niche into that?
I guess it's been growing along. When you go to school and you start to learn the philosophy of what we do, and the whole philosophy was around the innate intelligence of the body that we all have
Hmm.
as living beings. That's the difference between a living person and a dead person, is that innate that operates through us without anyone telling it what to do. When a mother has a baby, is pregnant, it just forms in the womb every month. It just, new things are happening. That's innate, and that happens in our bodies 24/7. And I think I begin to just grow more and more into that, thinking of it individually, but just really honing in that, hey, that's the life force,
Yeah.
that actually keeps me alive, that keeps me going. It depends on how much that is flowing and how much I nurture that, how healthy I'm going to be and how vibrant I'm going to feel.
Well, I love the key word there at the end there, healthy, and then also vibrant, right? So
Right.
I'm always telling people like, well, why are you so nutty about my obsession with health and fitness and wellness? I'm like, well, because I have like my own businesses and I help other businesses, and I have the firefighting background, which is why fire's in the logo. And I've got all these experiences in my life, and it's like I do a lot of crazy stuff because I have a whole lot of energy. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason why I have a whole lot of energy is because I take care of my health physically and mentally. And yes, I get massage every single month. I get chiro every single month. I haven't seen my traditional, my personal MD doctor in probably 6-7 years. And he's a friend of mine's husband. So it's like, it's not like I don't know who the dude is. I just have no need to go see him. So.
Right. And I love that. And that is the reason why, when we talk about why getting my voice out more, because more people can get there to where you are if they only knew that they could. Or, and it's not that people don't have any awareness. It's just actually having an experience of having someone in front of them saying, this is how it's done, this is why. When you talk about the why, these are the steps, and actually giving you the information. Then, with my voice, not everyone will listen, but there will be a community, a group of people that will begin to tune in to that and start taking those steps towards, more holistic healing.
I like the words you just said. They're tuning in, because you're playing the long game here. Whether you want to admit it or not, I'm going to say we both are, right? It's like putting out a podcast episode, getting on a podcast, doing Facebook Lives, or whatever people are choosing to get their voice out there. It is the long game, because tuning in is very hard to do because we have so much noise. We have so much technology now. We have so many smartphones, iPads, everything else. So social media, and I do it as a business, but I'll still pick on it. Social media is very distracting. It's very hard to tune in to the right paths or the right information. So that's why I said I think we're both playing the long game.
I agree with you 100%. You might as well admit it up front.
So did you realize that before you created the HRR method? And actually, I'm going to go ahead and right away do some screen sharing for the video feed, because you got that right on your site. Obviously, heal, restore, and recharge, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what made you do all that? What made you create the acronym, the methodology? Like, was it, again, back to our point earlier, like you just got far enough down the timeline where it's like, you know what, this is what I'm always having to tell people? Is it one of those things? I just got to label it and now make it consistent?
Right. You're telling people, it's not a whole lot of new information, but it's the information that you have to keep saying consistently over and over and over again. And you're doing workshops or individual, one-on-one consultations. And that was one of the things, how can I package this more? Because I know, even for myself, from a learning, if you're telling me, this information, I may be interested and excited about, what Scott has to say and live the fuel, but I'm going to be more attracted to it if you have a package, if you have a message, if you have a podcast, if there's a label to it and some step-by-steps. And the biggest thing is that, in my office, we do workshops monthly, and what patients have been saying more and more, even after the workshops, that's great information. I love it. Can you have a workshop on how to? What is the next step? What can I do at home? What can I take home? Do you have something written up to give to me? So that's when I started saying, this is what people are wanting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So HRR, is this basically is this like your platform, or basically, or you can call it the foundation of your stage that you lead with all the time now? Has it become that consistent? Where obviously, it sounds like it's the core of your being.
yeah, it's one of the things and I'm still growing into my branding and my platform. So the HRR, Heal, Restore, Recharge is the title of my coaching program.
Okay.
And there are steps to that. My podcast is coming out next month.
I thought I heard that. I was going to wait for you to bring it up. Congrats.
Yeah. Thank you. That's going to be titled LifeFORCEnergy.
Oh,
so
nice.
Between HRR and LifeFORCEnergy, that's kind of where my platform is going to land.
And since we're on the subject, I mean, are you going with basically one-on-one, meaning you and the audience? It's just pretty much you, or are you going to be having other people come on the show? What's your style?
Growing into that. So initially I was thinking me and the audience, and then, I'll just be talking over that with my team and getting advice from people who have experience in it, maybe even you having an experience, like what is the difference between that, or what am I getting from one versus the other?
Right.
Initially I was thinking of just starting out with just me and, kind of setting a tone for the message,
Sure.
for the platform, and then take it from there, deciding if we want to add other people in.
Oh, and I can tell you, I'm going on 4 years of podcasting. So
Okay, tell me.
one, be consistent.
Okay.
2, to be open to finding the path and the voice. So you can have, I mean, you got to treat your podcast kind of like a business unit. This is just how I'm wired.
Okay.
And you're putting a whole new force of energy into a new outlet. So you don't know how it's going to flow. And if it flows from the get-go, great, man. And I'm all about flow of energy, right? The flow state. And aligns with what you're talking about. And it's like, man, if it feels right and it's easy and it stays fun, then cool. But like all of a sudden this year, I decided to start experimenting occasionally here and there with a new, Fuel Up Friday. And it's a short format. So the history of this whole show was me bringing on guest co-hosts like you, and we talk for an hour. Well, then I was like, you know what? There's been people who've reached out like, hey, Scott, what's your opinion on this? What's this? I got people DMing me, and I'm like, okay, well, why don't I take some of that and put it into a one-on-one, me and the audience, and me just sharing a short 30 minutes or less episode. And it's just on what's going on in my life or lessons I've learned, etc. So I never planned on doing that. It's just all of a sudden, I'm like, well, people keep messaging me.
Mm-hmm.
And what if people do want to have a shorter episode? So I'm experimenting after all this time. So if I could pass that on. So
no, thank you. I received that. So basically you're saying just be willing to grow and experiment.
Right. Which aligns with pretty much everything in our life, right? I mean, the most successful people out there can attest, if you're not embracing change or remaining open to the influence of possible change for growth, you're not going to grow because you're just staying stagnant, right? It's like people are going to the MD day after day or week after week, getting the same diagnosis, or, oh, well, we haven't tried this yet. Let's try that drug. Let's try that. I'm like, I was like, wait a minute. So you basically have a doctorate in guessing games? Drives me nuts. I was like, well, yeah, you want me to put another foreign chemical in my body because maybe
see what happens.
It'll help. Maybe.
Yeah,
I'm super excited.
Right.
And then you get the TV commercial with all the side effects. It's like, oh, and by the way, you may experience this. I was like, okay. Yeah. Or I spend some time going to get some massage, getting some chiropractic, and see where that takes me. Again, I'm not saying chiropractic heals all, but it's definitely helped me a lot over the years. So,
and it helps a lot. And and I tell my patients and clients all the time, I'm not against having an MD or going to your MD. What I'm saying, definitely if, I get in an accident and I'm bleeding out, please take me and let them drug me and do whatever they need to do.
True.
And there's certain situations that require it. But what I'm saying is take care of your body and your health from a holistic standpoint first.
Mm-hmm.
And then let that be your fall safe if you happen to need that, and that other things aren't working or you need a boost, but not to depend on it and allow it to take over your life.
Well, here's a testament. As of a few weeks ago, 1 year ago in January, I collapsed a lung. So clearly my chiropractor might not be able to help me with that. However, I was going to my chiropractor at the time, and she's working on me and stuff. And she's just like, you still got this weird cough? I'm like, yeah, I've had it for like a couple of weeks. I didn't realize I had a 33% collapsed left lung.
Wow.
But because I'm so fit, or maybe I'm just an idiot, I just wouldn't go to my regular doctor. So I put this out there in the podcast world. I'm like, hey, I'll take a cue that I wasn't listening to my body enough maybe. But anyway, after like the second session, she was like, this isn't right, Scott. She's like, you're not sick. You just have this coughing condition. And she's like, she's like, here's a script. Go get a chest x-ray. And that's how they found it. So I had to go to a traditional medical place to get the scan done. And they held me there. They wouldn't let me leave. They said, we need to call you an ambulance now. You need to go to the ER. We need to get a chest tube put in your chest, because if your lung fully collapses, now you're put into a life-threatening situation. Wow. So I was on the cusp of a very life-threatening situation. And it was like, okay. The best part was I was with my chiropractor, and she's just like, there's something else wrong. She's like, this is something that should not be continuing. So.
Right. And in that instance, that's why I said I think it should be a collaborative effort. I've sent patients, to the hospital, call the ambulance before.
Yeah.
We need MDs.
Yeah.
And we need people who are more empowered, who knows more about the body and the natural ways that it heals in order to take care of themselves from a holistic standpoint, so that they need less drugs and surgery, which isn't overall good for the body over long.
Oh, I mean, I live a completely sugar grain-free lifestyle. So I want to remove any chances of inflammatory responses from those, unfortunately, naturally occurring biological agents. There's a whole thing about it. It's a whole different podcast. Anyway, so sugar-free, grain-free. And so that helped me in the hospital with my lung surgery and the recovery. And I already had the experience where I literally had my wife and my friends, and I was like, if you're coming to visit, I was like, you stop by and you pick up some beef bone broth and you make sure you bring my beef bone broth.
There you go.
That's all I'm drinking. So I'm literally doing, collagen healing from the inside out. I'm giving my body anti-inflammatory. I'm not eating the hospital food. I got my wife. I was like, babe, everything I need is in the freezer. I was like, don't even work that hard. Just take out a crock pot, throw it in there. And then, later in the day or the next day, just swing by with a Tupperware dish. I was like, that's all I need.
Yeah. And you already knew what to do.
Yeah. And they're like, and they had me pre-approved for the hardcore narcotic painkillers. And I'm like, nope. I was like, I don't want it. Don't give it to me. I finally agreed to take I don't know, I guess you want to call it like a hospital strength. You have to prescribe level of Advil or ibuprofen or whatever, because my wife's friend, and actually our friend, she's like, Scott, she's a professional nurse. And she said, like, RN level. And she's like, Scott, if you don't take something, your uncomfortability of a collapsed lung of the chest tube hanging out of your chest is not going to allow you to sleep. And you need your sleep to rest and recover. So I finally agreed to at least that level just to help. So,
and it was temporary.
Yes. Keyword, temporary. Boom.
Yes.
And that's the sad part nowadays. It's like what you and I are talking about does extend beyond the healing process. People get hooked on these things. People think that it's okay to keep taking these foreign objects that were never meant to be in our body. I don't know if you get into these types of conversations, but it's, I feel like it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere. And people are asking, sometimes we do have to be aware of our, scope of practice and what we're saying, but definitely do get into the conversation. And especially more from just saying your body can heal without drugs and surgery. And giving people the more information to make the informed decision on their own.
Yeah. And I will say, I mean, we didn't want to have to do lung surgery, but things weren't healing. And there was a hole in my lung. There was a few tiny little micro holes in my lung. They're like, that's why it keeps leaking. Like, okay. So they had this technique where they just shave the top of your lung off and all the little holes go away and it heals right up. I was like, okay.
Awesome.
So,
and that is just high appreciation for the medical profession.
But then I guarantee you, as soon as I was out, off the painkillers, following my nutritional regimen, all my best practices, getting back in as soon as my chiropractor cleared me for chiropractic, for my massage work, all that stuff. Because I had to, wait for the incisions to heal and all that stuff. But I was right back on my regimen, man. So I didn't I had to skip it for like 3 weeks. It's very frustrating.
For 3 weeks?
I couldn't do my chiro. I mean, she did like little things here, but I wanted her to work on the back and my neck and everything else. And she's like, Scott, there's too much going on down there. Just let yourself heal. So
good idea.
So yeah, sometimes we have to listen to you guys.
Your success story, your testimony to share with people. And giving them that contrast between, when you're going to need to depend on the medical doctor, but keeping your holistic lifestyle at the forefront.
Yeah, and that's where I think you've done a great job today mentioning that too. It's like, okay, there is an alignment there. There's a right time. There's a expectation, but it's like we have, especially in this country, and we have international listeners too and subscribers, but I feel like sometimes we, as a country here, we might share, we don't get into politics on the show, but I'm just saying we just sharing some bad examples that other countries and other societies and other civilizations are following. And I'm like, stop it. Like, for example, we're a very on-demand society. We want everything now. And that's the biggest problem. Like, I'll just go to the, if I can't get into my doctor, that's all these little, what do you call them? Those pop up. Thank you. Yeah. They're not emergency at all. They're like urgent cares. I'll just go there and get a script and pop me a drug. And I'm like, or you slow down, you listen to your body and you take the time. People are like not willing to sacrifice an extra day or two to get in and see somebody like you and just see what else is going on holistically, right? In
Mhm.
and around
Right,
the body.
right, absolutely.
Because that's a big part of your brand is the holistic side.
Yeah, the holistic side, definitely a big part, because I believe, healing is not just in one area. And just like you said, chiropractic can't heal everything.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely sets the body up for a better healing, process to happen more optimally than without chiropractic. But there's also the nutritional factor, and there is the physical factor, the fitness, and then definitely there's the mental,
Mm-hmm.
where everything happens first, your mindset and spiritual. So just being able to uh be aware of that healing and living holistically and healthy optimally has a lot of different spectrums to it.
Well, I'm glad you hit on the mental because actually I'm going to screen share again for your site because when I went through everything before today's show, a few pieces of your program stood out to me. So people, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, hearing this, it'll be on livethefield.com on the episode notes. But go to Dr. and spelled out Andy, so obviously Dr. Andrea Blake.com, and
Yes.
then click on services and you outline basically your 8-week program. But what I liked when I went through was there was obviously I was expecting to talk about lasting healing and there's some sacredness from the holistic side. So I saw it in your keywords. So I scrolled down. I'm like, okay, good. Healthy boundaries. That's also good.
Mhm.
What I really liked to start here was week 4. You talk about emotional weight loss. So keyword there is emotion. And then
Mhm.
I'll skip over 5, power of your alignment. But I also like, the self-love through radical self-care, right? Or the leveling up for lasting transformation. So really 7, 6, and 4 stood out to me from that emotional and the mental component. And I think a lot of people underestimate
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
There's so much mental.
Yes, so much, and I'm glad that you pointed out that those stood out to you, because that's definitely helpful as well. And what the emotional part when we talk about healing, there's a whole nother ball game that that can just talk about by itself for a whole hour.
Mm-hmm.
The emotions and what we find, especially as Americans, we're modernized and it's go, go, go. It's no pain, no gain. And, and some of that is
Classic. It's a
okay.
classic.
Yeah, it's a classic. But in the meantime, there's stuff going on that we're not processing, that we're not managing. And this is energy that has to go somewhere in your body. So unprocessed, negative people will, have tragic things happen in their lives. And I've done that,
Mm.
myself included, but just keep moving. Not taking time to rest, not taking time to process and care for yourself, because that energy has to go somewhere. Energy is always moving, and even the negative energy, if we don't process it and find a way to release it from our minds and from our bodies, it will manifest as a disease or some type of dysfunction within the body.
I definitely agree with you that. And we could full circle back to earlier in the show when I said, hey, there's some people going to hear this and they're going to be like, what is this hokey? What
Yeah.
they're getting all crunchy spiritual or whatever they want to say. And I'm like, no, it's okay, guys. Like people hearing this, it might be new for you. I hope not. If this is a regular listener, you guys know we've talked about it before. And Doc, I mean, I've had on flow state experts. I've had on psychological people as well as the like neurological brain health people, and they all talk about it in a different way, but it all ties back to the same thing. I mean, down to the mitochondrial level of our cells. And for people first time hearing this, mitochondria is literally the power plant within each and every one of our millions of cells.
Mm-hmm.
So just think about that. Like we are a giant ball of energy.
Yep.
and and I agree with you. It's like, okay, people think, oh yeah, I'm going to expel all this energy working out. That actually does help depending on the energy we're talking about, right? Expelling it. It helps me with stress. I'm such a high charger. If I don't work out for a few days, I become a bit of a jerk. Like I need to go sweat. I got to go push out the demons or whatever you want to call it. Right. But I agree with this point. I've had to learn this over the years was when I took a couple years off years ago and I was serving as a wildland firefighter out west. That was my excuse to leave the corporate world. And then, I came back and started getting back into the normal way of things and becoming an entrepreneur and everything else. But along that journey, there was different energies that weren't dealt with. right? The walls, so to speak, were still up. And I just, you think you can change a profession or you can change a life adventure, which I was living for adventure, which was great. All the highs off of that. But there's always going to be these underlying things that if you don't deal with them, they stick with you. You haven't dealt with them. That energy hasn't really released from the body. To your point, if it's really negative energy, remember that old saying, like, oh man, just if you're hurting me, you just push it down deep. Just push it down deep.
Yeah.
Well, I've learned now all these years later, like you push it, air quotes, push it down deep. It's going to make it even harder for you to crack into that and get it up out of you and deal with it.
Right. Should be let it up. Right.
So it's like now that I know what I know about energy, I'm like, oh man, I used to use that all the time. Like tough guys speak, right? And ladies, like, it's okay. Just push it down deep. I'm gonna tough it out. Tough it out.
Right.
So how do you get people to talk about that? Because obviously, if we go back on your program, and I'm just intrigued by it because again, week 1 through 3, embracing your sacredness, it's time to set healthy boundaries, and then setting intentions to recreate your reality in the life of wholeness. So obviously, you're building a foundation or a buildup, and that's why I kind of called out the later weeks, because I also know that you just can't dive right in like the first part of the program. Be like, all right, so we're going to talk about your deepest, darkest secrets. Let's do this.
That will not work.
No, apparently not. Okay, might be some pushback.
Might be a little bit of pushback. Yeah.
How did you know that? I mean, again, this is not normal stuff taught in chiropractic school, to my knowledge. I don't know. Am I wrong? Is that now being added into the programming more?
It's not normal chiropractic stuff. Being in the profession for 20 years, I've had a few experiences, and I've had some training on people training. First with myself, my own self-work, but also just on connecting, because you find out in chiropractic, you can't just walk up to somebody and like, I'm going to, move your neck and you're going to hear all these popping noises, and, so
some people call it the bone cracking. And I'm like, there's no bone cracking. That's just air. It's just air being released.
Through the joints. Yeah. You got to find a way to connect with people and learn, through their values. What is this person about? What is important to them? What do they value? And connect to them according to that. And then and only then can you get some of the walls to kind of fall down a little bit.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously to protect patient privacy, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, let's go general. What is one of the most profound awakenings that you've been able to observe, right? I mean, was there any of them that really stand out to you? And it might even be one of your own personal ones. I don't know. Is there anything you can give us an example of?
Well, I'm thinking of an experience with a patient, came in with, a lot of pain, migraine, the neck and back, just a whole list of things.
So physically, they think it's all physical pain.
Thinks 100%. It's all physical pain, 100%.
Okay.
And then, with the pain, that's going to put you in a bad mood anyway. And then there was these huge walls, and what we ended up doing, myself and my staff, we just kind of let her have a way for a few weeks. She'd come in there and, have an attitude and, spitting out this and saying that and, act in different ways. And, in our team meetings, I would say, she's in pain. And obviously she has a lot of stuff. So what we're going to do is just love on her. We're not going to respond to any of that. So we, as much as she'll let us, we'll talk to her. We're going to ask her about her life and find out what her values are. We're going to give her some gifts, and we're just going to show her extra attention. And so week by week, and she would come like two to three times per week, and you just see it go down. And she was getting adjusted.
Sure.
So she was also healing. And so as, her pain is decreasing, her body is healing, and her life force energy is increasing, it just, within 2 months, it's a different person.
So did your team believe you at the beginning? Like,
not really, because they were annoyed. She just come in here.
She's pushing buttons.
Right. She's pushing buttons. And why don't we do something? No, well, let's just love on her. Let's connect with her. And now, she's one of the biggest, professionals of chiropractic and talking about it. And she comes in and she gives hugs and she's smiling and laughing, and she's a different person.
So did you ever sit down and talk about the transformation with her? Did you ever like bring up what she was like in the beginning?
We have, you know what, that's something, that's a cool thing too, because we have like an open office concept.
Yeah.
So never really sat down with her one-on-one, but
Okay.
it's something that's kind of mentioned. Like, yeah, remember Miss So-and-so when she
Yeah.
came in, boy, she was, and now look at her, you know, so we make those kind of comments and we joke and laugh. And, you know, I just celebrated my birthday last month and she brought me a big balloon. And,
Oh, that's
so
nice.
like, yeah, I wouldn't have got this from you last year, you know, that type of thing. And she just kind of laughs it off. And yeah.
But that, no, actually, in a casual way, that's fun, but it's also good to remind us that, do you remember where you were at, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were closed off. You were angry. You were frustrated. You were just literally spewing negativity.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm laughing, but I am being serious.
Yeah.
It's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of us, you get transformed and maybe you forget, and it's kind of good to have, for me anyway. I think it's kind of cool to have a debrief, because my doc, she does it to me and she's like, do you remember what you moved like 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't walk around angry. I'm high energy, but I had my shoulder rebuilt like back in 1999 through multiple dislocations. And then I tore it all apart again and had to go in for surgery again in 2007-ish, I think. So I went through 2 big shoulder things. Now, granted, the second time, from a medical profession side of it, they're like, wow, you're going to do so much better in this surgery, because you could tell over those years, you found health, you found fitness. I started taking care of my body. And they said, the more fit your body is going into a surgery, the better the tissues will respond and bounce back, because I'm stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. Like after the first surgery, I was like, dude, I hate being weak. I went and found the gym and fell in love with exercise and fitness, but that was all physical back then.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't realize was mentally, until I found this current chiropractor. She's just like, wow. She's like, your scapulas are a mess. I was like, thanks, doc.
I appreciate
How's your day? So, but to her point, I've had people in the gym tell me that in the CrossFit world, if I would hang from a pull-up bar, like, dude, your left and right sides are messed up. Like you could tell you went through a lot with your shoulder.
it.
What I
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize was I had even had massage therapists like, man, it's like slamming into a wall on that one side, and they go and push on the other side, and it's all movable and flexible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that one spot just froze up. And my chiropractor said to me one time, and a very good energy guru massage therapist I found on a business trip in like Syracuse, New York. And they're like, you're holding some stuff there. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, dude, those surgeries were years ago. Like when you're in the gym, do you use your shoulder as an excuse? And I'm like, sometimes.
Yeah.
They're like, well, do you realize what you're actually programming yourself and your body? Right. They're like, do you realize you're telling yourself, oh, well, that's the bad shoulder. Well, if you always call it the bad shoulder, which I do,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, it's always going to be the bad shoulder. Like you've been repaired physically, you've gone through lots of physical therapy and all this stuff, but like, you're still calling it like it's a weak part of your body.
Mm-hmm.
So my doc said, she's like, that stuff is like a wall, because you don't realize this. You've carried it like a broken wing. Even after you've been healed, like you still protect it. And
Wow.
You could tell that your alignment of everything in your back has been compensating for that. And I was like, whoa.
Powerful.
And I never thought about it. And
Yeah.
now, granted, like now it was, we just had a session last week, and she's like, do you remember? She's grabbing a hold of everything and moving it. She's like, this sucker was frozen. And so, you girls have fun with this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I still got stuff she's working on, but it's true. I forget, it's like, wow, 2 years ago of her working on me. Like it's come so far.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But I mean, that's what I wanted to bring up, was that broken wing mindset. Like, even though I knew all this stuff, I was still allowing myself to call it that, the bad shoulder, that weak part of my body. I'm just intrigued. I'm sure this stuff comes up
all the time. And I'm glad that I like that, the broken wing concept.
Yeah.
And then it's one that, is something that, I guess it's a habit, but the mind is so powerful, and whatever you say and think, that's what's going to happen. And especially with your body. And I always say, when I'm talking in my workshops or different areas, your cells are always listening. Your whole body, your muscles, whatever you say, and it's like you're actually in complete control of that. Sometimes we forget. And sometimes I try to, with patients who are like, oh, my diabetes, my migraine. So you're owning it. And that doesn't even give your body a chance to release it or allow it to heal because you just owned it.
Yeah.
As yours. So it has to show up, So I love that you brought up that, thing that happened with your shoulder and talking about that broken wing concept. It's absolutely true.
Well, I mean, because she made a valid point. Was there some physical differences? Absolutely. Because what I didn't realize was I'm doing all these things to strengthen the muscles and the tissues, but there was still the mental piece of holding back its true maximum recovery. And I still fight with it. That's the point. I think that's something I want to bring up. And I like to be honest and transparent. Like, guys, like,
Sure.
I've done a lot of crazy things, and I'm the tough guy, and I try and be strong and fit for a lot of other people around me. But it's like, dude, guess what? I'm still human. We still got our own mental BS, man. But I think it takes us surrounding ourselves with professionals like you guys, because sometimes you need a pro, right? I tell people all the time with coaching and fitness, right? Like, you want to level up your game in a sport, you get a really good coach. Same thing goes in business. I've worked with different business coaches. I help other people too. It's like, okay, well, sometimes you need somebody in your corner. Right. And I look at that when I look at my chiropractor.
That's awesome.
But she has to book longer appointments with me because we talk so much.
I have those too.
Her office manager just told me that. She's like, oh, well, we're always we prefer you have come in right before she goes on lunch. I'm like, why? She's like, because she needs a longer slot with you.
And she can kind of use her lunch a little bit.
I don't know. I mean, I was like, is my body that entertaining from a workman standpoint? Like, I don't know. And she's like, no, you guys, she's like, I hear you down there. You guys are always talking about energy and health and cell health and your gut biome. And yeah.
I'm the same way when I get a patient like that, and they are, because most people are listening and they're there and it's helpful, but you get some people that are on fire.
Yeah.
And I read this doc and I saw this video. What do you think? And then, so you're kind of fueling each other. So it's cool.
I like to call that the geek complex. I'm definitely guilty of being a bit of a geek.
Well, thank you for putting it so clearly. And
hey, I'll take accountability. I mean, right? maybe your posse doesn't want to go by that, but I'll be the geek. Right. So I'm like, hey, man, what? It goes back to full circle in the show, right? Like, you found something that you cared about,
right?
And now, like, I care about knowledge, man. But back to podcasting and you with your speaking engagements and your workshops, it's like, great, we acquire all this knowledge, but if you haven't found a platform or platforms to pass it on, we're missing. And I brought this up on the show before. I forget who taught me this, but it comes back to wisdom, and maybe more from you. It's more of a holistic type of wisdom, but it's like, okay, great. I'm learning all this stuff and it's super exciting and I love sharing it. But again, am I sharing it? Am I putting it out there? Some people might hear this right now today and they're like, yeah, I could care less. But in 6 months, they might come back like, wait a minute, remember hearing that? No, that's got me thinking. So it goes back to that holistic approach on wisdom. One of my old influencers, he said, Scott, you can suck up all the knowledge you want. If you don't find a way to pass it on, you miss the whole point of what wisdom is all about. You can be the smartest person on the planet and have all the knowledge. If you're not passing it on and helping others with it, what's the point?
Yeah. So that's such a huge point. And I just want to really say how much I appreciate you and other podcasters, but you for having me on your podcast, because when I think about my voice and my message, and you're talking about, I've had people, even years ago who've heard me speak, or, you should speak you should build a platform. You need to get a bigger message out, or have something that's more streamlined versus just, stuff here and there. And it took me a long time to get to this point.
Takes us all. It takes us all.
I was afraid, and, just all this different stuff that we deal with. And now I'm finally seeing it, actually being, manifested out and just beginning with it. And it's feeling good. And so, yeah, just thank you.
Yeah. Well, again, the point of this is that, hey, we're taking time on our Saturdays to hopefully get through to a couple of people and maybe pass on some positive change in their lives. And maybe they don't go see a chiropractor for another year or two. Or maybe they already are and they realize, oh, they heard earlier in the show that maybe some massage might align with that. Maybe they'll start doing a little more massage therapy more. Maybe they'll try yoga. I know you're a big yogi. You and I, before we started recording today, you just got back from a big yoga trip.
Yes, yes. I just went with a group. I go to a studio here in Chicago, Ritual Hot Yoga, and we did a retreat in Tahiti,
Nice.
the 1st through the 9th of February, and it was amazing. Yeah.
Well, that goes back to the mental and the physical, right? You're
Hmm.
not just down there to have a great getaway and vacation, but you clearly found something, which yoga obviously, that aligns you
Hmm.
mentally and physically. Because I go to yoga, but I've never said, you know what, I'm going to go to another part of the world on a
Right,
yoga themed retreat.
right.
So
Do
I like
yoga
yoga.
every day. Yeah.
I don't think I love it at your level. So
Hmm.
it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I'm the skier though, so I'm the guy's like, oh man, I want to go ski that 12,000-foot peak. Yeah, let's go do that. Like
Hmm.
that's how, like, literally in a few weeks I'm leaving for another ski trip to go to Utah,
Oh,
to go ski out there. So that's my thing. So, but
that
it makes me
I
happy.
hmm
So
I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of my, when I, was building my coaching program and my thinking about my message, I didn't want to be one of those people who had one thing and that's it for everybody. Wanted to be able to have people figure out what's their thing,
mm,
what you love to do, the physical, the mental, find what works for you and stick, because you're not going to stay with it or stick with it unless you love it.
very good point. I think, again, keyword there, love, right? I think
Hmm.
that stems back to the whole part of your program. I said earlier, I love the emotional and the mental component. Well, we're trying to align energy to find that epicness of flow state. So I tell people all the time, like, when I find a flow state, it's because I enjoy doing that. Like when
Hmm.
I'm not running a microphone or not running a sales and marketing or branding project, if the weather's nice and a buddy of mine I mountain bike with calls me up and says, "Hey, dude, there's a tree down blocking the trail," I get all excited and grab my chainsaw, grab my mountain bike, and get my outdoorsy guy on and go wreck house. So the flow of the trails continue. See, that's just one more thing that makes me happy. You can see it on my face, like I'm
Yeah.
smiling, like I'm already like, yeah, go fire up that chainsaw.
Did anybody say
Uh,
a tree fell?
it's a thing. It's like, hey, skiing, chainsaws, microphones.
Right.
I've
Whatever
just
you like.
I've just found that, actually, yeah, it's a good way to kind of bring the show to the close, is that we don't know where that timeline is going to take us. Everybody tries to overplan it all. I never
Mhm.
planned on having a podcast 4 years ago. I never planned on founding, a branding and marketing business. I didn't plan on getting married. I'm coming up on 1 year of marriage. All
Congratulations.
these, thank you.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like
Mhm.
sometimes you got to let the walls down, allow the energy to flow, and then let things take you where they can take you. But as long as you have a smile on your face, and like right now I'm talking with you, it's like, okay, I clearly enjoy this.
So do I.
Clearly there's some good energy flowing.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah. I think that's a good way to close it out. Just thinking about life, holistically, taking it all in and letting it flow, things will come to you. And I believe in that the more that we allow our bodies to heal and we're able to let down resistance, we're able to think more clearly and set, clear intentions and really take care of ourselves in a radical type of way, unapologetically, things will just flow better. We don't have to work as hard or chase as much or, worry as much or, like you said, plan,
Yeah.
because life wants to kind of flow for us and
Hmm.
kind of to us, and we have to set ourselves up for that. So that's amazing.
I love it. That's a
Hmm.
good message. Well, listen, we do want to bring the show to the close, but you already left some powerful words just now, but I asked all my guest co-hosts. Nowadays, I'm calling it a legacy message. Over the years, I was saying, hey, do you just have some final words you want to leave behind? But now I've realized I actually prefer calling it a legacy message. But everything you're doing, what you've learned over the 20 years and where you're going, obviously HRR Method is your platform and your system that you're helping people with. But is there like a higher legacy, all-encompassing message that's kind of taking you into the future, or something you want to leave behind for the audience in case they forget all the other wonderful stuff we shared today?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, like we just said, in the first step of my coaching program, life is sacred.
Mm.
Your life is sacred, and the more that you're able to embrace that, and not just a word, but really understand you have this magnificent, amazing life given to you by God. You have this life force energy. It's sacred, and you're going to take care of it better. and just show up for life, be here for it. That's why you're here, for the whole life and for the joy and the love and the abundance. So be here for it, embrace it, love it, and live it.
I love it. Love it and live it. Yes. Well, listen, hang tight. I want to give you a proper goodbye off the air. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to share one more time. Make sure you go check her out. Again, her website is her name, drandreablake.com. She's got a fun download, quick start guide, and a bunch of other information you can look into there. She's got a blog. Obviously, when this airs, the podcast might be live. Actually, real quick, Doc, do you have a start date?
For the podcast, it's next month. We don't have a firm start date yet.
Okay, so you're shooting from March 2020, which I believe, if I double check the calendar, that's when this will be airing, is in March of 2020. But I could be wrong. That's why I have a VA now. Because it's just
good idea.
But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Andrea definitely helped us. I would think fuel your health, business, and lifestyle today, aligning these domains of your life, finding a way to get that energy to flow from a holistic perspective. It's real. Okay. So if she gets through to you and you want to check her out more, you don't need to be in Chicago, people. This is the online world. You got social media, you got the website. There's no excuse. You got podcasting. So again, we're here to fuel your health, your business, and your lifestyle. She helped us do that today. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, you too can live the fuel, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.